Right, well, that's quite short. Grande Punto. I don't like this car. I've never really much liked this car. It hasn't been on the channel. I just realised I've recorded video after video of different bits and pieces, Fiestas, welding, whatever. And the Punto's been around for a year and it hasn't made it onto the channel. What I'm going to do now is give you a bit of a walkthrough of where I am with it. And then I might talk you through some of the bits that I do to fix it. I might not. Yeah, anyway. It was originally bought from, so on the channel previously was a Kia Rio, so that was my niece's husband. When he gets to a point where the MOT comes up, he's not that mechanically minded, sells a car, and I'll often buy it off him if it's something that I can do the repairs on. With this Punto, it didn't need a massive amount for the MOT. It needed a couple of little bits, but my nephew was interested in it. Turns out he doesn't actually want to get his license now, but that's been 12 months it's been sat here for. So I have decided to get it MOT'd again, because it's now second time around, and then get it gone. And then if he wants to get his test again or get his license, we'll get another car at some point in the future. Right now, we've got a bit of a problem. Here is problem number one. For MOT, you've got to have your headlight washers. So in this complicated pile of poop is the headlight washers. They're not that complicated, but it's typical, isn't it, of how you start doing one little thing and then before you know it, you're nowhere. I started ripping, look, the whole dashboard to pieces to try and find things. There's the body control ECU, which at one point we thought was the issue. My neighbour Rich actually helped me to diagnose all this lot. I mean, he's a whiz with the electronical side of things. I'm useless. Anything mechanical I'm okay with, electrical not so much. But when you start digging around, I found things like, look, that's been cut, so that could be an ignition live. Under here, if anyone can tell what that is, it's not connected to anything. Someone's just literally manually chopped the wires and put them back together again. That's no good. Under there is an octo, which is like a tracker. So someone, I think, probably has had a black box at some point in the past. What else have we got that's wrong with this car? The tyres. And again, Best Tread Auto tyres in Hina. Whether they'll even bother watching this or not, don't bother going there. It had an MOT there last year. They said they fixed the headlight washers. They clearly hadn't fixed the headlight washers. They just did something to get it through the MOT, probably topped it up and it worked. Last year, it was intermittent. On this side, the tyre wasn't very good. I think it had a bulge on it and they put a part worn on it. And the part worn was made in 2013. So it was a 9-year-old tyre when it went on. I don't have the tyre now, I took it off. It cracked really, really quickly because it was so old. Dangerous, it shouldn't have been on the car. Anyway, that aside, new tyres have come on the front. They'll be happening. The headlight washers, I'll show you what I'm doing with those in a moment. And the other thing is there's a bulb out. On top of that, these pads look like I've seen better days. So I'll take them apart. They look very, very similar to the Fiesta with your sliding pins here. So the pads don't look great. I thought I'll just take them apart, give the sliding pins a good shakedown, give them a clean up, make sure they're okay. It's had a new battery. It had a second new battery actually. The first one went under warranty because it was probably just sat for too long, I guess, but that one died, so that's now second new battery. Last year we did the cam belt and the time belt, which actually was quite easy. It's the same thing with the locks on it. Locked it in place. It's the same one as the I think the KA, the newer KA, and it's the same one as the Fiat 500, I believe. New auxiliary belt's gone on. New water pump went on. We changed the oil, but in so doing, obviously, and the oil filter. In so doing, we dropped the sump plug into the sump, so we had the sump off and put a new sump on. Yeah, I don't much fancy this car. I don't think it looks all that great compared to some of the other stuff that's out there. When you look at the Fiesta, that is also for sale, that's got a lot more mileage on it, but I just like it a lot more. Anyway, back inside. So what we've got is the washers don't work. We went through, we looked and we found that there was something that wasn't quite right. It was shorting in different places, put a new pump on it, checked for power, wasn't working. Anyway, behind here, I've got to be very careful with this, is that's a clock spring, which takes all the powers from the airbag and for the multifunction steering wheel. It comes through here, but behind there, it's also connected then to the stalks. If you look at these stalks, I'll just take this off briefly. Behind there, look, you've got, can you see them, 4 little fingers? And 2 of those fingers, one is for, let's get that, one's for the rear wash, one's for the front wash. Rear wash is dominant, So when they connect and contact onto the board behind, then it sends a signal round, or it completes the circuit and the washer goes. When I say the rear is dominant, when I've put this back together again, I've adjusted these fingers, and that's all it is. Adjust those fingers and it all works again. So you put the ignition on. Right, so they finished wiping because I've just been playing. So it's fine now, look, but if you push it on to where it would be when you put this cover back on, it's doing it without even trying. So what was happening before is the rear was going, the rear was washing, because the rear was contacting. When they were both too close to the panel, so they were both then pushing, and they were both making contact, constant contact, rather than using the lever. And it was then the rear that was taking over and pushing the water out instead of the front. Anyway, all that aside, I'm going to get this fixed and back on again. I've managed to butcher the back of the steering wheel. It was complicated for me, trying to figure out how to get that out. So that's part of the steering wheel. I'm currently negotiating, trying to bid with someone on eBay for a new one. They want 35 quid, I've offered 25, they've said no. Right, that's the steering wheel there. It's also got a big flat Fiat, maybe that is flat, on the airbag, so I wouldn't mind a new airbag anyway because it just looks nicer. And then on the back of here, so when you do, if you want to take an airbag off of your Fiat Grande Punto, you need to get inside the steering wheel and then push these levers here inside, which then releases them off the steering wheel. So hard to see when you can't see because all you've got is a tiny little hole that you're circling around for. So you come in here and it's actually, you need to push that lever inwards. So push that inwards and that will then make you release it. But anyway, that is how you get the steering wheel airbag off. These need a little bit of tweaking. So that's just the first video of the wonderful Fiat Grande Punto. I'll get back to you when I've fixed this and show you around it some more. Can't wait. I mean, look at this now. So you wiggle them fingers around and all of a sudden you've got mind of its own. Yeah. Right, I'm still not a big fan of the Grande Punto. Although we did start to bond a little bit now, so maybe my dislike is not as high as it was. The other thing is, I've had the washer problem. That's now sorted, so it was just a constant, the 4 little bits of metal that are making the contact there. Those 4 fingers are, they're now in the right places, so I've now got contact and the washers work. I'll show you everything when I've finished. But the other thing is, it's on the back, isn't it? So on the back of the unit, it actually tells you that it's made by, I can't remember which one was which. I can't remember. But on the back of it is like Valio or somebody, so I can't want to dismiss them. So it's not even Fiat's problem of why that's failed. So maybe it's not the Punto. Maybe it's me and my disappreciation for it, which is causing the anxiety. One thing that is good on it is that the squib that on my Kia that I had, I broke the clock spring because it spun round and round. There's a little feature on this one which is actually better, and they should all have those. Anyway, I'll spin around in a second to what else I've done. Yeah. So on here then, this feature is that little black ring, because I had a cable tie on here going through one of the screw holes at one point, just to make sure that this didn't go around too far. If you know much about these squibs, if you go too far one way or the other, then what you end up doing is you wind the little white, so you can just about make it out inside there. There's a little white ribbon, and that ribbon carries all of the cables through and around and back out the other side. Or is it out under here and to whatever that's meant to be? So if that goes round and round too many times, it snaps, and then you lose the functions on the steering wheel. You get your airbag lights coming on and all sorts of stuff. But on this one, there's a little feature, that little ring. So you push that in, and then it goes round freely. So when the steering wheel's on, that locks into place and it goes round and round. So that's quite a nice little feature. Right, what else have we done on here then? So that's now working as it should do. Everything's fine. The rest of the car, I've just destroyed it, taking it apart. I'm going to have to bond back the bit of trim because it just wouldn't come out. It's in here and there's no way to access this. In fact, if you look behind it, it's plastic welded on, so there's no way to get in there. I've managed to destroy the heating controls. Maybe blessing in disguise, because on number 4 it wouldn't go right. When it goes to number 4 they turn off. So I'm hoping that the resistor that's attached to this, or the resistor is attached to the panel, so by changing the panel maybe I'll get number 4 back as well. I also found that, again, you can maybe know more about Fiat wiring than I do, but that's the regular plug for the stereo, and you can see it goes through to there. Someone's butchered it and made a permanent live to the switched live, so that was probably draining power as well as the octo, or whatever it is, the tracking box. I have now figured out where the power supplies are coming from. That one that's been cut is the permanent live, so I'm going to reconnect that to make it a permanent live, and then I'll use a switch, just chucked a bit of wires on, got down here into where the 12 volt socket is, and there is a switch live down there, so I'm hoping I can get through there nice and easily, and then run a switched live back up there so the stereo will work. But then I've got the stereo working, and guess what? The speakers are absolutely shanked, all of them. So I've then found out, if you take this panel off, look, it's lovely, nice little Fiat thing, you can get the little panel off, but you can't get the speaker out. So why would you put a little panel on and you can't get to the screw holes to take the speaker out? But you can see the speaker, look, it's literally got pieces missing from the diaphragm. In fact, let's have a quick look at this then. So in the back here, I've got these Boston speakers that were, when I had these in the car many moons ago. I don't know whether they're going to fit in those holes, whether they're the right size or not. What do you reckon? They should be, shouldn't they? So I reckon that those will go in there. The rear speakers, I think, are about as shot as the front speakers. So, oh, that speaker's probably no good now, I just dropped it. Right, so there's front speakers and the rear speakers. That's okay, it landed safely. So the front speakers and the rear speakers could all be completely knackered, and if they are, there's not really much point in connecting the rears. I'll just disconnect the rear speakers and I'll have the front speakers working just on their own. So someone who buys it will at least have a stereo that works and speakers that work. This doesn't work, so they're going to have to come apart and do that as well. These Hakey wind deflectors, oh look, nice. Launch, that can go. So these wind deflectors, don't like them. I think they could probably even be letting water inside the car when they're not closing properly. So, and in fact, actually, look, that window, that's probably why that deflector came out properly. That's probably been leaking water in for some time. So that window is going to get sorted. What we're doing now then, right, tyres, they've been replaced on the front. Brake pads have been replaced in the front. Brake pads, actually, they were easy. I was surprised. The pistons that go forwards and backwards, they went back into the caliper nice and easily. The sliding pins went nice and easily. The pads were definitely low, so that would have probably been either a failure or an advisory on the pads. So they've been done, and they haven't kicked my arse. The only thing that was a bit stupid and strange on them, again, maybe it's a Fiat thing, or maybe where they got them from, but the two sliding pins, one was a 12mm, one was a 13mm. Why would you do that? Right, and on the rest of the car, like you can see, bits of body stuff on there. I think now I'm that far into this thing that I'm going to be spending more time on it. I'm going to probably have a little go at trying to polish these headlights up a little bit. I'm going to have a go at the bodywork, and I'm going to have a go at the interior to try and make it a bit better. I've spent so much time on this and so much money. I'm now going to have a crack at trying to get some of that money and time back by giving it a really good clean and polish. So that's that one. Over there, oh, this one started doing a pogo the other day. There's a slight misfire. Hopefully I can find out what that is and why. And this one, the battery keeps draining, and I found out that the terminals that connect the battery are really not very good, and there is a problem with the terminals. So there's a video going to come on that, where I'm chopping those out and putting some new terminals on altogether. So keep an eye out. This one is going to be next. Fiesta is on the way. That is going to go at some point. Some people came to look at it and asked me to do some service stuff to it, so maybe I'm going to give them a quote for that if they want the service stuff doing, and then that's on the way. If not, then they're both going up for sale. I've got the oil and the filter to do in that one, so I'll do a video on that too. But I think it's going to be hard onto the the Punto for a while, so we can crack out of this. Right, so the joy with the Punto continues. I'm now doing the rear window. I think it's probably my lack of love for the Punto that's making me not want to actually bother showing you too much of this. I'm aware it's a bit windy, so I don't know how much it's going to cameras can pick up on it. But if you do want to do the window regulator, This is a manual window winder on the rear. I'll show you, it's pretty easy, but I'll just quickly show you around. So inside the door, you've got to get the door card off, and I'll show you that after I've put it back on again, if that makes sense. It's pretty similar to most door cards. There are, where these are, there's two nuts on here. There's also two nuts on here, so they're dead easy. They're 10mm. You just take the nuts off, you know, just little nuts. Take the nuts off, and your mechanism comes out. So I've got the new one to put in down here, and you can see that's the back of it. So there's your, those two go there, and then you've got one there, and they go into those two brackets there. So it's going to sit sort of like that inside the door. Then, and I'm not sure how the magic is holding this up, but that plastic bit there goes through a hole in the bottom of the window, which is then held in place by that really strong and secure piece of plastic that will hold that, and basically hold that window in place. It seems like a mad thing. And that's the thing I would think would be a failure point on this, but it's not. My failure point on my old one, I can show you, that's quite easy to see where it's broken. You can see there's obviously a cable. There's your winding bit, and you can see there should be a cable, and that's the end of that cable, just there. So the cable is snapped. It looks like the end of the cable. I'm just going to show a picture of my bushes instead. The end of the cable is meant to attach to that. It's snapped. So that is gone. It's only about 20 quid to get a new mechanism. So the whole mechanism is going back in again. 4 bolts and a clip, and it goes in. So that should be easy enough to do. I'll just pause it, put it back in, and then show you how to put the door card on. Right, so that's done. That mechanism is back in again. And I'm actually, oh, something just one-handed. I'm actually really surprised how easy a job that is. What I did with this one is I actually put the mechanism in loosely with the nuts in place, and then the locating hole on the bottom of the window. So if I can get inside and show you that. Oh, let's do this first. The locating hole on the bottom of the window, my mechanism wasn't, it's good, but it slips and goes the opposite way quite easily. Right, if you can see inside here, can you get in there? Can the camera get in? Just where, oof. Go on, zoom, catch it. No. You can see where it's looping over there. Maybe there, just about. Maybe not, but on the back of that, there you go, maybe, if I can zoom in there. Well, there you go. So that, where the white plastic is a U shape underneath, that's the bit that clips underneath the white grommet, if you like. I'll show you on the old one. So that grommet goes through the window, and you can see there's a, go on, there you go, and you can see where it's holding it in place. The old one, there you go, that's the old clip. That's what that does. It goes up there and holds that piece of plastic and attaches it to the window. You can also see on the old window, you can see the amount of dirt on the bottom of the window. This car, when it was sat through the winter last year, because it wasn't getting used, the amount of mouldy spores that went inside, I reckon that there's got to have been that because it dropped down, was letting the moisture in and causing all that mould in here. We'll see, won't we? Yeah, so then to make sure the window mechanism was wound down a touch, so it was wound down a bit, so I just used the handle, wound it back up, and that enabled me to get the locating pin to sit into the window, and up it went. Right, the door card, I think I mentioned that briefly, that I was going to show you that. And the door card comes off quite easily, so if I can do it one-handed. Right, that's out of the way. So, handle's off. This I'm not fussed about. I don't know if it depends on how many of my videos you watch, but this is what I'm saying about, that's what you expect to be on the inside of a car. Whereas on the Fiesta, I was really surprised to see it was a much better quality than that. I'd certainly have Fiesta and Ford Fiesta of a sort of similar build quality to the Punto, but this seems to be much inferior compared to the Fiesta. Right. Rear speakers, I mentioned that in a previous video, they're disconnected. You can see they're all completely and utterly shagged. So windows are off. With the door cards on all of these, just going to try and show you with one hand. The top clicks in first. Will it go? Oh, we might have it one hand. Hang on. There we go, drop the phone instead. Right, so we've got the top in. You can see that now. Oh, it will flap forwards and backwards. So you know you're in when it's gripping up here and you can flap it. So that's good enough. Right, let's make sure we bushes out of the way because I managed to trap a bit of bush in the front window. My camera works awful, it's a bit like Blair Witch. Right, now, just going to push it down a little bit and I'll just with one hand there, just go over a little bit. So now I'm feeling around and I can feel that it's located in. There's a bit of a gap here. That's now not got a gap. There's a bit of a gap there. That's now done. So then on this particular door, there's underneath here, you make them out, there's two of these holes, one there, and one there, and that's it. And then you just need these bolts that go in. They are the same size on all three of them. My sockets that's around the front actually, so I won't show you how to put them back in again. And there's a little cover that goes over there. Very easy. I use my little what's it? There's a little notch in the top that comes out of there, and that is the normal way to get most of the door cards off. With these, you've got also an additional thing here with the I can't remember what I call it. Yeah, a little pokey. What's it? This is your retaining clip, like your circlip that goes on there. That is you have to pick that out. That's it. It's called a pick. You pick that out to put it back on again. Or if you put that in one-handed on there. Oh, I've janked it. Right, I can't show you that with one hand. I should definitely use two hands. If you put that clip back in and put it where it should be, and then just push it straight over the hole, and use its bracket in there as well. If you put it straight back over the hole, then that will basically lock into place without the need to do anything else. And that's it. So that's the door card on and off. The window regulator, easy enough. And that's about it. What else have we done? So I'm not going to show you anything else now until after the MOT. It's booked for the MOT now. Interior wise, it's mostly back together. The door card here is back on, apart from the screws need to go back in again. That's had a new speaker there. It's had a new speaker the other side, and look, I've got a dashboard again. Got a new steering wheel, which is the same as the old steering wheel, but the badge is right, and I haven't got any massive holes in the back. That doesn't look like it's seated as well as it could be. I've got a stereo, and the stereo works. I've got to put a bit of trim back on, and I've got to put the vent back on. None of those things will fail in MOT. So I think it's ready for the MOT, and if that happens, I'll get it all prepped and ready. If I get it prepped and ready, then that will be the next thing that will happen. If there's anything it fails on the MOT for, I will then make another video, tell you what it's failed on, and then talk you through the bits I've repaired. But beyond that, I think I'm almost, well, it is ready for an MOT. It's just a case of a bit of tidying up. That's a bit of a pain in the arse. I managed to crack that getting it out. And my bother is there that I can't actually find another bit of trim on eBay to replace it. So I don't quite know what to do about that. Whether to try and bond it back on or what, but yeah, I don't like that. Normally I'll get another bit of trim to replace it, but can't find one at the minute. If you've got one, send it me. Just watched that bit of video back before I posted it and realised that on the door cards there are also screws. There are 2 screws on the bottom side of the rear door and 4 screws on the bottom side of the front door. So please don't try and take your door cards off on the Punto or Grande Punto without taking them screws out as well. Otherwise you'll be taking the 3 bolts out and then yanking and wondering why it won't come off. But screws, bolts, and then a good old yank.